live from the lab for Nationals Talk with Dujunnea Bland for Sports on the Hill podcast, episode 113. And as I just mentioned last week, we went through a state of the Nationals, and with them being in third place this late in the season, we were dissecting this team. Should they be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? We see they didn't make many major moves, but they did make a few. They traded Sean Kelly, I believe, to the A's. There was some controversy around that. What's the guy's name? I just shared the article earlier. I got to find this guy's name. Greg Holland? Yeah, Greg Holland. They signed the free agent Greg Holland. There's been a mixed review about him with his ERA as high as it was and him being out there, but we need some stability. The Nats haven't really been too bad, but this past week they played very well because we spoke about the upcoming schedule. And with the Mets and the Reds coming to town before the Braves, this could be a major, chance for the Nats to make a push for that first place, being where they are in the standings. But after that discussion last week that we had, Dujunnea, the team definitely responded. I'm going to go ahead and break down this first series, and then we can break down the historic nature of that first game, because we started talking about that last show. I went to that game with my nephew, his first time going to a Nationals game, and I hope he isn't spoiled because the Nats put up a touchdown in the first inning, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Let's just go give a little walk into what's really going on with this team. As I mentioned, they won a 10-game homestand when they had 2 games versus the Mets, 4 games versus the Reds, and 4 games versus the Braves. And currently the Philadelphia Phillies are in first place at 63-48. Atlanta's in second at 60-48, a game and a half out of first. And the Nats are 57-54, 6 games out of first and 4.5 out of second, and also 4.5 out of the wild card. So these 2 series against the Mets and the Reds will be key to this matchup that's starting tomorrow against the Braves. I'll get into the upcoming schedule a little bit later. But the Braves are in town, and this is a 4-game series. They're 4.5 up on the Nats. So if the Nats can get it together and get a sweep, they can really tighten up the NL East. And depends on what Philly does. Might be able to make a major move in the division if Philly maybe falls off and we can do something with Atlanta. Then, hey, be a first place, second place within a couple of games. You never know. That's why we said last week, there's still plenty of time left. We didn't think they should be, trying to sell the team off and making any major moves because the talent is there. They just have a lot of injuries and a lot of inconsistencies. So hopefully, going into this series, this homestand, they will get back on track and get things together. But in the last week, the Nats, as I mentioned, went 5-1. They beat the Mets twice and won 3 out of 4 versus the Reds. Game 1 of the Mets series was a blowout and got out of hand early. It was 7-0, as I said, after the first inning. The first inning took almost 35 minutes. I had never seen or witnessed first inning like that. There were no home runs in that first inning. It was all just, doubles, singles. There was a wild pitch. There was some stolen bases, but there were no home runs, which is normally what happens when you get a crooked number like that early in the game. But I'm not really going to go into all the scoring because it had to take me about 10, 15 minutes right there by itself. But it was good to see Tanner Roark took the mound. That game put him at 5-12. He lasted 7 innings, giving a 1 earned run on 4 hits with 7 strikeouts and no walks. This was a drastic change from his previous 6 starts, when he was giving up an average of 6 hits and at least 4 runs in those starts. He got some much needed run support, as I mentioned, with 7 in the first. And I just go over the quick highlights. Daniel Murphy, he went 3 for 4 with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs, 3 runs scored. Ryan Zimmerman went 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs and a home run. Matt Adams went 1 for 2 in the backup role after Bryce came out when the game really got out of hand, and he got a 2-run home run himself. Mentioned Tanner Roark again. He kind of busted the game open in the bottom of the first with the bases loaded when he hit a base clearing double to make it 7-0 to propel this 25-4 victory over the Mets, which was the most lopsided victory in the Mets Nationals series, and I believe they said even Expos. So this was a much needed offensive output that we were speaking about, and it was amazing to see how the Nats bats just went to work. Now this was only a 2-game set, so game 2 was the Nats going for the sweep, and that just they did, winning 5-3. And Tommy Malone, if you recall, he was here back in 2012, 2013. He ended up back here, and he went 7 innings, giving up 1 run on 3 hits with 9 strikeouts and no walks to earn his first win as a Nat in his return appearance. Kelvin Herrera got his second save as a Nat, going 1 inning, giving up 2 hits and an earned run with 1 strikeout and a walk. But once again, the Nats offense started early with the RBI single by Bryce that scored Trey Turner. Then Rendon added a 2-run home run in the bottom of the third, also scoring himself and Trey Turner again, making it 3-0. The Mets made it a game by the bottom of the 8th, where Jose Reyes had hit 2 solo home runs, 1 in the top of the 5th and 1 in the top of the 8th, which made it a 3-2 game. But the Nats answered in the bottom of the 8th with 2 runs, with Matt Adams beating out a fielder's choice to score Trey. The fielder's choice, and Wilmer Defoe hit a sacrifice fly, scoring Bryce, making it 5-2 to the Nats to win the series. And well, the final score was 5-3. Pardon me. Well, Wilmer Flores for the Mets got a solo home run in the top of the 9th, but that was pretty much it. Nats closed the door, pick up 2 against the lowly Mets, and look to go have the Reds coming into town. Dujunnea, I know you haven't probably watched as closely as I have, but did you see any of that 25-4 football game that kind of happened? They got 2 safeties somehow.
I did, actually. I was watching it on my phone, and man, it was just absolutely incredible. And the funny thing about it is like the criticism, not just by us, but by other media pundits, must have been felt because they rose to the occasion on that one. And it proves what this team is capable of doing. Obviously, that's not an every night or every other night type of thing, but again, it's taking advantage of it. It's stumping a mud hole in the folk that you are supposed to be. And the mud hole is an understatement for what they did to them, but it was definitely a phenomenal game and an enjoyable game if you were a Nats fan and were able to attend or even watch it on TV. But yeah, that was nice to see, and it seemed like that one game, and I know a lot of folks in the media after that game thought that might be the spark that would ignite a little bit more consistency in a winning streak, and it looks like it has done just that.
Yeah, most definitely. We spoke about it last week. They were needing the spark, and we spoke about the unfortunate words of tweets of Trey Turner, and we gave our synopsis on that, and would this galvanize the team and give them something as a rallying cry. And I must say, in the past week, not saying that we psychic, but we know a little bit, and I feel like it has, brought some chemistry and some more chemistry to this team to get them back on the right track. But still a long way to go. As we mentioned, it's still 6 games out of first. So let me get ready to break down this series versus the Reds, in which they won 3 out of 4. The game on Friday was actually postponed due to rain. So they had a doubleheader on Saturday, which they split. But we'll get back to the game 1 that was on Thursday, which was a 10-4 win by the Nats, with Mad Max taking the mound. He lasted 6 innings, giving up only 2 runs on 4 hits with 10 strikeouts and no walks. He's now 15-5 on the season and the first pitcher in the majors to win 15 games this year. Ironically, he has a 5-game hit streak in his 5 last starts that he's got on base. So he's pitching well and hitting well, and helping his own cause by getting timely RBIs to help get that run support that he much needs. The Nats, once again, offense struck early. They put up 6 runs in the 2nd inning to take a hold of this game early. And with Max on the mound, pretty much that's a done deal. even though he only went 6, which I do like, because in a game like that, there's no reason for him to be going 7, 8, 9 innings. That's why, you get tired at the end of the season. Sometimes you gotta let your bullpen work. You get a nice lead against a lowly team. Let your relievers come in and do their job. You don't got to push Max to 7, 8 innings every time he out there, because try to make that long playoff run. Excuse me. The Red starting pitcher only lasted an inning and 2/3. As I mentioned, he gave up 6 runs in the first 2 innings. Trey and Bryce each had a home run in the bottom of the 8th. And ironically, in that 6-run second, there were no home runs in that either. So the Nats have been playing some small ball, been stealing the bases, been getting singles and doubles. And, playing small ball is not all about the long ball like some teams are, or like the Nats used to be in some aspects. As I mentioned, the final score of that game was 10-4. Game 2, which was played on Saturday, the first of a doubleheader, the Nats took a bad loss, 7-1. Gio, who is now 6-8, lasted only 3 2/3, giving up 10 hits, 6 runs, 5 of them earned, and 5 strikeouts with 2 walks. The Reds had a lead of 6-1 going into the bottom of the 4th, and the Nats just didn't have an answer for Anthony Discalfini. I ain't even gonna try. Excuse me, not even gonna try to mess up that man's name. But he's 5-3. He lasted 7 innings, giving up only 6 hits and 1 earned run. Game 3, which was the second game of the doubleheader, which had an old opponent, Matt Harvey, taking the mound for the Reds, who the Nationals had pretty much had his number on his last year or so in New York, and helped fuel him getting out of New York to Cincinnati. And the way he pitched in this game, if he faced the Nationals too many times, they're going to get him out of Cincinnati too, because he only lasted 4 innings, and Jeremy Hellickson lasted 5 2/3, giving up 4 hits, 2 runs with 3 strikeouts and no walks for the Nats to have a 6-2 victory over the Reds. The Nats went down early this game, 1-0 on a solo home run on the second pitch of the game, but in the bottom of the first, Anthony Rendon doubled in Soto to tie the game at 1. Then in the bottom of the second, Wilmer Defoe had an RBI single, scoring Michael Taylor, making it 2-1. Then in the bottom of the third, Matt Adams singled home Soto again to make it 3-1. And the Reds got back within 1 with a solo home run in the top of the 4th, making it 3-2. But Anthony Rendon came up in the bottom of the 5th and doubled in a run. Rendon doubled in. Matt Adams came up. I'm losing my notes. Matt Adams came up in the bottom of the 5th with a solo home run. Then Defoe double home Kai Boom to make it 6-2. Yes, the catcher's name is Kai Boom. I didn't make that up. That's really his last name. And that ended up being the final score, 6-2. And the final game of the series, where the Nats going for the three-game series win, was a close pitching duel in which Tanner Roark had another stellar outing, going 7 innings again, giving up 1 run with 2 strikeouts and no walks. Kelvin Herrera earned his 3rd save as a Nat with a clean 9th inning, giving up no hits and having 1 strikeout. The Nats got a solo home run from Wieters in the bottom of the 2nd. They got an RBI double from Bryce to make it 2-0 going into the top of the 4th, where the Reds got a run, making it 2-1, which, as I said, ended up being a final score. The Nats pitching definitely stepped up against weaker opponents this past week. They did what they were supposed to do, especially Tanner Roark. Gio had a little hiccup, but this is what this team needs to try to get the momentum going, pitching, offense, and defense. So what did you think about this 4-game, this winning 3 out of 4 games against the Reds, heading into this Atlanta series that's starting tomorrow?
Well, they're 5-1 in their last 6. And they're on a really good roll. They have the bats going. Pitching seems to be trying to do its best. And we've talked about it. And the biggest thing here is being able to put pressure on the opposing team's bats. That's going to help your pitching out, because if you're up and the opposing team feels like you're getting away, they're going to press a little bit. Now it allows your pitching to do what they do and put in that work. Allow them to maybe go after a few things, or press, go after a few things that can draw them and draw the outs, draw the strikes. That's so important to get up on teams and put a little pressure on them to to have to score, and they've done a pretty good job of that. The funny thing about this is going into this Atlanta series, Atlanta has pretty much the same record in their last 6 games as well. And this is going to be a story of confidence, because Atlanta has had Washington's number for most of the season. They feel like that, they can beat them. And with them being on a roll, it's going to be very important for the Nationals to be focused and have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and have that redemption chip, so to speak, because they need it. And they have to get these wins in order to close that gap to be able to make that charge for first place. It's not only going to do well for their confidence, but it's gonna shake up the division a little bit. It's gonna put some people on notice if they can do this, because Atlanta's been very, very consistent, a young ball club, but they've gone out and they just take their lunch pails to work and get the job done, and that's something that Washington hasn't done. So it's going to be very important for them to get this win here, but it's looking quite good for Nats fans and for the Nationals as they come into this with a little bit of consistency. They look like a baseball team, and they look like the team that most expected at the beginning of the year before the injuries and all of that stuff.
No doubt, no doubt. It looked like Bryce is starting to, get back in the form. He's hitting the ball the opposite way. Looked like he's not pressing as much. Ryan Zimmerman, he's been, getting in rhythm. The outfield has been playing pretty well defense. Soto, I forgot to mention, wins the NL Rookie of the Month for back-to-back months for the Nationals, and that dude is killing it. And we'll get a little bit more detail of him. Let me get on to the upcoming schedule. We mentioned that they have a 4-game set versus Atlanta starting tomorrow. And it's a 105 start, because it's actually a doubleheader from a rain out from the last series they played, I believe. So it's a 105 start for Game 1. Game 2 is a 7:05 start. Wednesday will be a 7:05 start. And Thursday again will be a 105 start. I'm not sure why it's an early start for that game, but it's a 105 start, so you get some afternoon baseball. Then after that 4-game series, they have a 3-game series against Chicago, the Cubs, that is, where they're going to the Windy City. Game 1, which will be Friday, is a 2:20 start. Game 2 is a Saturday, which is a 4:05 start. And Game 3, which is a Sunday night baseball start, is at 8:08 on ESPN. So we'll be checking them out and see what the Nats doing in this push right now that they have. They hopefully can start it out with a win tomorrow against Atlanta in the first 105 game. I'm sure I'll be checking that out, getting probably streaming that on my phone while I'm at work just to see what they're doing. But we mentioned Atlanta, Dujunnea. I'm going to get into the Nats for a little while. We're going to talk about Atlanta a little bit, because the Phillies and Atlanta are playing very well and playing way better than anyone expected them to. But Atlanta has a good mix of young players, veterans, and pitching. We know Atlanta's always known for their pitching staff, so they aren't the old Atlanta Braves with the 4 aces, but they have a solid rotation. Excuse me. Their bullpen is above average, and they have a quality closer. Now, we spoke about the inexperience and hearing footsteps and not having that, knowing how things gonna go down the stretch. Do you think the way the Nats are playing right now that they'll be able to overtake Atlanta for first place, or Philly, or who's ever in the jockeying position at that time? Do you think that they legitimately have a shot to maybe win the East or get the wild card spot?
I think they can win. They've shown that they have the ability. I mean, we know how talented the Nationals roster is. The biggest issue right now is in front of them. You're at home. You're going to be playing the Atlanta Braves 4 games. You got to win all, or you have to at least win 3 out of 4. You have to win more than you're losing against the guys that are in front of you. That's how they're going to make up this difference. If they don't, there's going to be a tough road to hoe. But I think if they don't, they'll still make the wild card. But they definitely have the ability to win the division. That's not a problem at all. That's never going to be a problem for them with the talent that the Nationals have. Now we start getting some health and consistency going. But it's important right now that this season series, this week's series against the Braves, they have to go out and take it because those are critical wins and losses that add up and basically come to the collective when it comes down to it. Who's going to jockey for that position? You have to win those games against those guys in front of you. So absolutely, but it's going to start this week. If they can do that, they're going to increase their chances. But like I said before, talented roster, we know that, and it's definitely within their grasp to win this division because it's so close. It really is. Anybody can suffer an injury or have a hiccup or whatever, and if you burp, there's someone else there to if they're staying and moving in a forward direction, they can pass you up. So nothing's impossible in this division. It's not out of reach.
Very true. I feel the same way. Now, I'm going to get it. I just mentioned Juan Soto, back-to-back NL Rookie of the Month. He's already tied Mickey Mantle for most extra base hits as a teenager and third for home runs as a teenager. He's already surpassed Bryce's numbers as a national. But let me just delve into his numbers a little bit. He's played 66 games, has a .310 average, a .424 on-base percentage, a .556 slugging. I know a lot of folks don't know the analytics of baseball, but as a rookie, as a 19-year-old, it's very rare that you have a player that excels this quickly at this level just coming into the game. And he has 72 hits in 66 games, 13 home runs, 16 doubles, a triple, 48 runs scored, and 37 RBIs. I mean, and has 46 walks as a rookie. I mean, I can say that I always liked Mike Rizzo, and I felt like he was one of the top GMs in the game, but I haven't even really heard about Soto until they called him up. I know he was a exchange pick or something like that because where he was coming, I believe he came from Cuba. But this kid is phenomenal, man. I haven't seen anybody besides Bryce perform like this, but he has half of the pub that Bryce have received because he basically came out of nowhere. Have you got a chance to really focus on Soto, or you just haven't really got a chance to see what he's done?
Well, I have, and we know that a lot of guys from the Dominican Republic are pretty good, but this dude is insane. And what's incredible about this, it proves the farm system that the Nationals have. One thing I think fans have to be, pleased about is that they didn't do anything ridiculous to try to acquire players that would require them to deplete their farm system. And I think we talked about it with the Bryce Harper thing. If you're going to offer me a bunch of talented farm guys in a trade, some ridiculous trade, then obviously one player doesn't make the team. So, yeah, you probably more than likely pull the trigger on that. But you need to be getting some, with the national farm system, I don't think you want to give them more farm to have. And that just increases their talent. But this guy, if you think you're going to come up here and you're going to pitch, you just think, he's just a rookie. I'll beat him with some of my good stuff. This guy's good. And you better be on point. Because if you're telegraphing what you're doing, he's going to send it into the stands quickly. But this just shows, great management, and it also shows that, again, the Nationals have a great farm system, and this is what you want. This is what the Braves have been doing for years. And this is how you develop consistent ball clubs that can make the playoffs and challenge for World Series, bids. So this is definitely promising, and Nats fans should be excited because you don't have to, you don't have to sell the farm or be all in on one player because you have so many. I mean, there were plenty of people who were surprised when the Atlanta Braves let certain people go back in the day, and they kept moving right along. And I think the Nationals, over time, will continue to be and move in that direction, and they'll be one of those teams that will be able to do that. And I know a lot of people feel like, once exposed, always exposed, but this team's doing an excellent job of building talent, and Soto is a really excellent example of that.
No doubt. I'm just looking at the injured list. I mean, in case, like we mentioned, the injuries, we know all teams have injuries. But you got Strasburg on the DL again. You got Doolittle on the DL. You got Eric Fetty. That's 3 pitchers right there. Then you got, I totally forgot about Howie Kendrick, how crucial he is. He's been out with the right Achilles. I'm not sure if he'll be back this season or not. Jonathan Solano, Joe Ross, he's still on the mend from having Tommy John surgery. So we've had injuries, and they've had major injuries, but they've still recovered. And like we said, they're only in third place, 6 games up. The season is far from over. Anything can happen, and I believe this team is going to get it together and find a way to win the division. Because, like we mentioned, Atlanta doesn't have the experienced Philly. They're in the lead right now. They're up a game and a half on the Braves. They're playing some good ball. I can't take it away from them. Jake Arrieta is pitching his butt off, and it's definitely helped that Phillies rotation gain some consistency, and they've been pitching lights out. They've been getting timely hitting, and they've been hitting the hell out of the ball too. I remember the game against the Nats. I believe they had almost 6 home runs against the Nats. So they are. This is a funny division this year in the NL East. We've got used to the Nats running away from it and just chilling at the end of the season because the other teams were in rebuild mode. But surprise, rebuilding is over because the Braves and Phillies are looking like they are, going to be in it till, close to the end. If the Nats can get, like you say, put some fear in them by winning 3 out of 4, possibly sweeping the Braves, and that'll put Philly on notice also, because then they'll only be, if Philly wins all of their games and the Nats win, it'll only be a game and a half between 3 teams for first place, and that's definitely going to have some folks sweating a little bit in the Phillies and Atlanta locker room, knowing where the Nats came from and being back-to-back NL East division champs. But
right.
Yeah.
This could work in their favor.
Most definitely.
It can really work in their favor. Getting out in front and, putting the coast on and putting it on autopilot at the end, you know how that works. You go in and sometimes you're a little bit sluggish going into the playoffs, and you get a hot team and they jump all over you, and the next thing you know, you're exiting in the first round. Teams who win are guys and teams that can catch fire at the right time. If you have momentum going in, it's a huge help in sustaining that at the most crucial times when, everything is elevated. Play, emotions, the whole 9 yards, the playoffs. So this could actually be a good thing for them to have to continue to fight till the end. And then we talk about a few players, as you mentioned, that are injured that could come back and assist this team even further. So this could actually work in their favor, and probably is the better way to go than to be out in front, coast, and think you're just going to turn on the afterburners again. And usually those afterburners give a little, and the next thing you know, you're done. So this actually could work out well.
Well, we saw that recipe with the Capitals. They had to fight to win the division. They faced some adversity, went to the playoffs. Nobody, didn't expect much from them. And lo and behold, we saw the cup going down Connecticut Avenue. Constitution Avenue. So, not saying that's going to happen, but like you say, adversity builds championships. Winning cures all. And, when you have to do what you have to do to win, you know, that solidifies the team. And like we always say, pressure bursts pipes. If you're not ready for it, you're gonna fold. But if you are, you're ready for that opportunity, you're gonna take advantage of it. So that's all we can do is sit back and hope that these guys have figured it out and that they're going to put a legitimate run together like they've done before. But it's definitely going to be interesting last month and a half, month and 3 weeks of the season going down to the stretch. I guess we can do a little bit more baseball talk before I get in the Mystics rounders. I know we got Paul calling in around 7:50 to give a quick tease about the boxing and MMA and WNBA show this Thursday coming up at 9 o'clock. So y'all make sure y'all check that out. But we mentioned the injuries. We mentioned the young players on the Nash team really, you know, solidifying and helping out, contributing to the cause. But is there some intangibles with this team that I'm not seeing? And I know last week, I alluded to it, but I did mention last week the subtraction of Jason Worth, and we mentioned Dusty Baker not being there. So it definitely has been a different feel to this team. And we spoke about Trey Turner, you know, situation maybe solidifying it. But what do you think is going to push this team to be over the top to really make that run and really get a good stretch going?
Well, you look at it, you have young guys that stepped up and made contributions, such as Seminole, etc. Now you need guys like the Bryce Harpers, guys who have been there to be consistent. The most important thing is the bats have to help the pitching. So if they're, you know, now granted, bats can't bail them out all the time. They're gonna have to put in that work, and sometimes you're gonna win a game 1-0. But they have the offense. So the bats have to, if they can put pressure on the opposing team by getting up early, maybe taking away some things defensively, and some things in some situations where maybe you have two guys on base, maybe you have a guy in scoring position, and you take that away, and you get out of the inning without having any damage done. Those little things have to happen because those things affect the opposing team majorly. It causes them to change up what they may do. They may start pressing a little bit more because they feel like the time is running short. As far as the game goes, the innings are 2 or 3 innings left. They have to do something now. And that works in your favor when you can keep an even keel and put the pressure on the opposing teams. They just have to be comfortable with what they're doing. As we stated before, that's pressed a little bit over the season. Now, if they can get back and do what they're doing right now, get those things going and do the little things, that's what's going to be important going down the stretch and continue to get the snowball effect of what they started here in the last 6 games, winning 5 out of the last 6. So that is what I see as being important for this team moving forward, to be able to have that shot to get a wild card or win the division.
Yeah, they've actually won 7 out of their last 10, so they're definitely on a winning path. They definitely have some momentum going, especially into this series with Atlanta being at home. They definitely have to win, like you said, 3 out of 4 or possibly sweep them to try to make this thing tighter. It's getting down to the wire. You know, we still have time left, but it's definitely time to start putting it together and getting everything going the right way, especially if they do make the run to the playoffs. They're going to have to be ready when they enter the playoffs because that's the most serious time of the season.
Absolutely.
All right, they're actually showing the National League standings now. They have 4 teams to jump in the wild card, and I mentioned there's 6 games out of first, 4.5 out of second. So it's plenty of time, but it's still time is of the essence. And I'm going to go ahead and end this Facebook Live feed. We're going to get in the Mystics, and I just talked to Paul. We're going to get him on a little bit early because it's been a lot going on the last couple of weeks. So we're going to dig a little bit into it, but not give you too much because we still want you to tune in Thursday night. But I'm going to go ahead and end this feed. I appreciate everybody tuning in and chiming in, as always, and sharing our feed. I'm going to end it right here. Make sure the computer's acting right tonight.